but we have been conditioned to be like someone else, or you have to be the best reader, you have to be, and if you're not those things, then you're less than. And so we are constantly having to measure up to some standard. And if we don't meet that standard, there's something wrong with us, which is not, that just isn't a good foundation for having a sense of self and the uniqueness that we are, and putting that out in the world and having that celebrated.
If you have followed the rules but feel unsatisfied with where that's gotten you, this podcast is for you.
We'll help you learn how to reach your goals through creativity, intuition, and flow.
Welcome to the Flow into Authenticity podcast.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Esther and I are here today with a fabulous guest, Tara Clark, who is one of the co-founder of Tara Shakti.
Founder, and I brought on a co-founder this fall. Yeah.
Okay. The founder of Tara Shakti, which sells super cute, amazing ski suits for women. And before that, where do I even start? Before that, Tara started off as a professional photographer, and then inspired by things happening in our society and political world, she started Believe, Love, Unite, which is responsible for all those cool lawn signs that say, "In this house, we believe, ... During COVID, it was very inspiring to watch from across the street. Tara and I are neighbors. That her house basically became this amazing flower shop because all of these things were shut down. And so these local Hmong farmers who were growing flowers suddenly didn't have a place to sell their flowers from, and were in a really tough spot. So Tara opened up her home to sell massive amounts of flowers, and then branched out and found some local businesses to also support these local Hmong farmers to sell their flowers during this pandemic, during the lockdown, when we were all confused and didn't know what to do with ourselves. So anyway, we are very excited to have this amazing woman with us today who has had, a million different twists and turns in her professional life and her personal life. And we just want to welcome you, Tara, to our podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here because I think you, Allison, are a phenomenal woman that I've been lucky to know as a neighbor, but then just learn your story in your career, your pathway to your career, and continue to explore other areas of your life. It's exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to start out by having you tell us your story, whatever parts you think are interesting or relevant, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's always hard to figure out if you start at the end or at the beginning. And I guess I'll probably start just at the end for a really quick, since it's what I'm doing right now, is designing and manufacturing one-piece snow winter wear suits that actually unzip and become two pieces. And it's a bomber jacket. And we say they're unisex with a feminine fit because we're so used to unisex masculine.
Right.
So men always ask me if I will make them for them. And right now we're a bootstrapped company, and limited capital keeps me really focused on the feminine fit and bringing more, not boxy, but more beauty to the outdoors and to the mountains. And they fit men if men choose to have a different fit for themselves.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm really excited about it. We're a women-owned company, and women designing for the feminine fit. And it all I've gotten to this place because of the pathway of all the different twists and turns I've taken that really are about connection to different people that are completely different than me. And the one thing that I would say, I have been a professional photographer. I'm a social entrepreneur, and now a founder and CEO of Tara Shakti. But the only title that I'd want to have on a business card would be human connectivity conservationist. It's the thing that I think is the most important thing in the world. It's something that came to me about 10 years ago, when I'd been invited to go to National Geographic's 125th anniversary. It was in DC. It was an incredible weekend of watching explorers and conservationists and just magnificent people on panels. It was really inspiring. And I was there for the weekend, and I wasn't envious of the photographers. I wasn't envious of anyone, but I remember getting on the plane thinking, what is my purpose? All these people were so lit up and lighting other people up through their stories that they were telling about their work. I have no interest in space travel or space exploration, but listening to this scientist on the stage talking about the work she was doing, the way she was conveying it, because that was what she was supposed to be doing, was this work in the world. It made me want to go learn more about space exploration. So on the plane, I thought, what is my purpose? What am I doing? What am I a conservationist of? And for me, human connection is truly, I wrote it down in my journal. I think I had just turned 40. And ironically, because of human connection, it has really, I can draw a pathway to every part of my life it has ignited different things that has led me to where I'm at. And so that is the most important thing to me. So so I would say, just even you across the street as neighbors, we know each other a little bit, but we have different things going on in our lives. I have older boys, you have younger children.
Yeah.
Our lives are very different, but I believe we are so much more the same than we are different. But we have to reach out and engage with people that are different in different places, in different spaces. And that's really what has informed my whole life.
I love
think,
that. Yeah. That's so beautiful, because actually that's like one of my core, when I figured out my kind of vision statement, that was everything that runs through my art and my coaching and my teaching, as well as that connection to each other, to ourselves, and to the environment, and I think that's what it's so needed now, number one. Number two, I love that so many of the artists that I work with, they can't really see the underlying, I guess, vision, like reason why they're here actually does connect to what they produce, right? And so like, I love that you're saying like, this is actually the core of who I am. And I do make these products, but they're just like a overflow of that kind of passion, right? And that's in that vision. I love that, because I think getting to that core of who you are, why you're here, is so important. And that's
How did Tara Shakti come out of connection? What was the connection that started that?
Well, it's one that when I was a photographer, and I started my career a number of years before I had children, I was moving around the country, putting my husband going to school. And so I kept starting new photography businesses in each location that we lived. When we returned to Seattle, I kept doing that. But I had young children. He became, after residency, an ER doctor. And my schedule and his schedule was really difficult. And I had to try to figure out something else. I was fortunate I was a Peace Corps volunteer after college. And I always daydreamed about just going. I remember doodling in my notebooks, just writing down foreign places. I didn't have the opportunity to travel when I was growing up. My parents didn't have the opportunity to go to college, so it was pretty limited, my access to the world, outside of, I was from Salem, Oregon. And I don't know why, but I just would write down all these places. So I went into the Peace Corps, predominantly to give myself an opportunity to go somewhere else. That opened up the world of travel to me beyond just living. I lived in a small mountainous village in southern Africa in the country of Lesotho. But traveling, hitchhiking, public transport through Africa allowed me to feel really comfortable moving through the world in places that most people wouldn't. And I carried that on in my, I guess, adult life. And every year I would go somewhere that many people would choose not to. And when I was trying to figure out how I needed to transition from both of us having full-time work, I had just come back from South Sudan, and on the plane, I met this woman who was living in New York, but she was from Kenya. And she had said, we just had an incredible conversation. She was wonderful. And I thought, you know what? I travel all over the world, not to see the sights of the world, but to connect with people. Even if I couldn't speak the language, it was about the people I was meeting and seeing what they were doing and learning and being inspired by them. And so I thought, wait, the world is in my backyard. And so I started a project that was called The World in My Backyard. And my goal was to meet, interview, and photograph someone born in every country in the world that live in Seattle. And it's still a project I want to get back to. I couldn't figure out how to get it funded, but it was the best year of my life.
Wow.
And being in Seattle, people told me, oh, wait, you're only going to meet like 20 different people from 20 different countries. And
No
I knew that
way.
wasn't true. That was the easy part. And there was no vetting. So it was going to be the first person I met, or with 1 degree of separation. So if Allison said, oh, I know someone from Guyana, have you interviewed a Guyanan? They would be my person if they agreed to do that. So the very first people I interviewed met and then asked if they would do this project that I didn't even know how to do. I'd never interviewed anyone. Was a couple. Their names are Lakpa Rita and Furbadiki Sherpa, and they are from Nepal. And they are just incredible. The first interview was amazing. And then we became friends. And Lakpa, he is a mountaineer, and he was the ambassador for this company called Sherpa Adventure Gear. And it was an incredible company that was founded locally. And I loved their products. Anyway, I reached out about 5 years ago. The company was sold to a California company, but I found out that the founder was still local. So I cold called in, had no business doing it. And I have a whole bunch of old ski suits that I loved. And I wanted to figure out how I could modernize them and if it was possible. So I called into his company, which was a manufacturing sourcing private label company that he maintained, and met with him, showed him what I wanted to do. And he took a big risk in working with me and didn't require huge capital to do prototypes in the
Wow.
first run. And so that's how it started. And if it wasn't for my connection and friendship with Lakpa and Furba, I would have never gone looking, because a few years prior, I kept saying to my husband, I want to figure this out, but I wasn't going to go try to source in China. I had no business or background in apparel. So because of that connection, and now I work with a gentleman, Tashi Sherpa, and his family-run company, they have enabled me to learn, understand, and grow in the outerwear industry.
Wow.
So I've learned that now in all the things I've done, I have never been trained to do it. As a photographer, I didn't study it in school. I studied business just because my sister did it, and it seemed easy. I was good with numbers, and I'm good with black and white, and I'm very logical thinking. So each step of my pathway in my life has never had any background of training or education. It's really just
Wow.
following my intuition and trying.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to talk about. I
You just-
love it.
You just said a lot of our favorite words, because we're fascinated with the idea that creatives are logical, or that, people in logical careers are creative or doing creative work. How does your logical side feed into that creative side? How does your logical brain help you do something like take a beautiful photograph?
Well, I think that we all see the world differently. So beautiful
Mhm.
photograph is also subjective. So I only
Mhm.
take what my mind is seeing and telling me to take. And I'm a
Mm,
people person. So every picture has to have a person for the most part in it.
mhm,
I don't do scenery. So the logical mind, um, I think has helped me be able to learn some of the tools you need for photography, but not be
mm,
intimidated. My creative mind, or my allowing myself to make mistakes or follow my intuition or just try, allows me not to get caught up in the am I doing it right? Because photography can be
mm,
very technical. And
mm,
when it's taught, it becomes about numbers, and it can be very confusing for people. So I'm fortunate that I can grasp it with my logical mind kind of, but allow myself to explore making a mistake, or I just don't get caught up in
Yeah.
if it's wrong or not. Um,
Yeah.
cool.
I worked for two photographers, and I worked for a long time for a female photographer in LA who was pretty well known, and she was my mentor as well, and she used to say that she was
mhm,
very kind of good with numbers and logical, and for the most part the photography, well, art in general, but photography especially, is very a very
mhm,
male dominated industry, and I think for that reason a lot of it, because the women, have been so kind of conditioned not to follow
mhm,
math, or that follow their logical, math and science kind of brains. But she really emphasized that helped her so much in the photography, with, getting all of the
Mm,
precision of it.
mhm,
But I want to go back to your thing we talk about a lot is following your curiosity, right?
mhm,
So a lot of what we talk about is the flow method that we've been talking about in the podcast, of if you're feeling stuck and you're feeling like maybe you don't know what to do next in your life, life's calling you. Like, I like to talk about
mhm,
it, like life's calling you in a different direction. And I love that you talked about that you are very logical, but also you let life kind of show you what was next for you.
mhm.
And so, um I guess, how did you kind of, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but
Mhm,
how would you tell people to kind of listen to themselves,
mhm,
if they're feeling stuck in what's next? Because you kind of jumped in, right, to all of these things
mhm,
that are next. Like you were talking about, they kind of found you in a way, and
mhm,
you just said yes, and you followed your curiosity. So this number
mhm.
one step is, like, I think, following your curiosity, I think. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's a really hard to tell yourself I need to get unstuck, right? Because life has ebbs and flows, and it's it feels good when things are working. We all want everything to feel, we want to feel good. And and I will say that it's just hard to sit in this space when it doesn't feel good and things aren't working. And we all have that. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't experience that. It's just that we're experiencing it in our own spaces, in our own lives, in our own wherever we're living. And it's hard. And so when you're in that space, it's like, okay, I mean, I've been times where it's like, wow, there's no magic happening, or I don't know what I want to do or what I'm doing, and I'm not sure, like, where's any sense of movement or creativity. Um, but then I have learned, I'm 51, and I feel like in the last 4 or 5, 6 years of like, just sit, that you have to be sitting in it. We don't want to sit in that. And so we give it a negative term of being stuck, but
Yes,
that's just having to
yes.
sit and
Yep,
have kind of the hard and go through the hard, because you will move through it. I
yeah,
believe everyone will move through it if they don't aren't so hard on themselves, because the harder we are on ourselves, the further down we go, and it
yeah,
takes longer to get out of. And so I just think overall, the way we have been brought up in at least this society doesn't allow for us to feel uncomfortable and be okay with that. Or when we've made mistakes, we really are hard on ourselves. And I always just say, I'm not nailing anything. I'm not nailed life at all. Never, ever. Not nailing parenting. I'm in the midst of a divorce after 25 years. I'm in my 25th year of being married. Marriage is hard, and I appreciate the marriage I've had. Never nailed it, wasn't nailing it. I don't think anyone does nail their profession as well. And we focus on the negatives and have them define us, but it's not defining us. It doesn't, these things don't define who I am. They're just a part of my journey and learning from them. And hopefully I will get stronger and use this experience to inform my future a little better and make different decisions. And, but none of it will I ever regret, because it's part of our process.
Hi folks, Esther here. I wanted to let you know that I have a new workshop that's available on my website, and it's called the Intuitive Goal Setting Workshop. I used to create goals based on how I was taught, right? Creating a logical, linear plan and then sticking to it no matter what. Crushing those goals for the new year. This led me to burnout and frustration practically every year. Well, it's the new year, and so many of us are sick of the idea of creating goals the old way that we've been taught. Many of us who are intuitive, neurodivergent, or just more feeling-based have found that the old way of creating a 5-year plan and crushing our goals just doesn't work for us. So I created an intuitive workshop to set intentions based on how you want to feel in your life and teach you how to listen to your intuition in creating and reaching those goals your way. It's a lot of the stuff that we talk about in this podcast. You'll learn how to dig deeper into what's calling you and break that down into small steps and learn to listen to your intuition along the way to help you pivot. I also talk about creative seasons and how to make room for rest as well as growth in the new year. Even though the title is actually Intuitive Goal Setting for Creatives, I've taught this class to everyone, and you will benefit from it if you feel like this sounds like you. So I'd love for you to check it out at flowintoauthenticity.com/courses, and I'll put a link below so you can check that out and create something beautiful and meaningful in the new year.
I'll go back to, I just really think our society, we've just been so conditioned to not give ourselves grace and to conform and to be like someone else. Everyone else is nailing it and I'm not. So that comparison game really gets in our way. And I will say, like, I am now, I didn't even see myself as a creative until like 8 years ago. And I had been a professional photographer for many, many years. And I can go back to when it all started in 3rd grade. I was, sitting there, and my teachers, we had to do arts, and you had to draw a house with your family members. And I was just stick figures. Mine was horrible in my own mind. I looked to my left, and the girl was just like bubbly, beautiful family. And to my right, awesome family that looked so beautiful and colorful. And I looked at mine and I was like, oh, mine doesn't look like theirs. And it is so bad. I am not an artist, and I will never do art. And I did not ever do art. I stayed so far away from it because of that experience in Mrs. Adams' class.
Oh no.
And I think that we stay with what, our education, do what you're good at, and you stay away from what you're not, even though now with children, parents believe they should be good at everything. Like you should be great at everything. If you're not getting A's in everything, then something is wrong, and we better start addressing it. And we are so hard on our children, and then parents are hard on themselves because they're not maybe nailing it because their kid is failing in a subject. But I think it's detrimental to our humanity because it doesn't allow us to explore the things we're not good at. Like, again, I did it. At 16, the first thing I ever bought for myself was a camera. I was fascinated by it, but I I didn't take any classes because I was an athlete. And back when I was coming up, it was still lab times with film. You had to, they were long lab times, wasn't digital. And so I had practices. And so I played sports, and I was really, really lucky. I feel like I'm privileged in that I am a good athlete. Like sport, athleticism came very easy to me. Academics came fairly easy to me. Social things came very easy to me. And so I could fit into a lot of spaces and avoid what wasn't comfortable for me. And no one encouraged me to do the hard things. And so I never took classes in photography, but I still pursued it in my own little passion. And I will say, like, I really actually hate the word passion because in high school, everyone's like, "Oh, just do your passion, follow your passion." It's like, oh my God, if I knew what my passion was, awesome. But
nobody knows, right?
That felt very pressured as well. It felt like there's just had to be answers to everything instead of just being and like showing up. So going back to being, getting unstuck. For me, if we could just know that today is where we're meant to be, and show up as you can. If you need to lay in bed, all day, then that's okay. But do get up and get outside the next day. And you might cross paths with someone that will open up just a thought for you, or a pathway that you didn't even know was there. But you have to allow yourself to sit with yourself and be okay. And then get out and show up for yourself in the world, in places that are a little more uncomfortable, because those are the places that will expand you. And we all now, I feel like, stay in very siloed, safe places. And that is really dangerous in so many ways for our sense of self.
Oh my gosh.
And in community, when we're siloing in safety. So
absolutely. I
That's
think
a question I have too. Like when you were talking about traveling around, like a lot of people would be scared to do that because it wouldn't feel safe. How do you get over that fear?
Well, like I said, I think partially I'm lucky because I went into the Peace Corps and it allowed me to live in places. I mean, I was in South Africa when the first week that Mandela was brought into his presidency. And so traveling into like the former homelands where white people did not travel, especially not in their own car, I felt safe. I was lucky. Now, have to be really acknowledge, as a white woman, I have a lot more privilege in traveling and being able to feel safe. That might not have been the safest place for me. I was told over and over it wasn't, but I trust, again, my intuition and my instinct. I trust other people. I start with trust, actually, in all things. And I trust other people until I don't. And if they lose my trust, then I have a hard time repairing relationships where I feel wronged. So maybe that's work I have to do. But also I trust myself. And if I'm feeling not safe, then I will make a different step to move in a different direction. But if I think that has given me the gift of going out in the world and feeling comfortable. But if we lead with fear, I could understand why no one would go anywhere. If you're afraid of your neighbor, if you're afraid of the person that doesn't look like you, if you're afraid of missing the boat that was leaving at 11 o'clock and you don't want to miss that boat because 12 o'clock isn't okay for you, then you won't go anywhere, because always you're going to run into things that are not familiar, they're not known to you, and they will be uncomfortable. But I feel like that's probably one of my secret powers, is I'm really feel good about being uncomfortable. And I've learned, I should, when I'm stuck, even me, I need to remember to just lean into the discomfort, because that's where the most growth and discovery happens. And at this place in my career, and I've not really had a very non-traditional career and pathway. No one could ever make sense of what I was doing, even when I was a photographer. And that was hard. It's very isolating in that space, because you're not a professional that's, understood. Like when my husband became a resident, all of a sudden he was a doctor, and he is now known and elevated and respected just automatically in our society. And that respect is just through education. It wasn't because he did anything extraordinary. He just had taken time and was lucky and privileged to have that opportunity. What's ironic now is where I'm at in my life, I am having people tell me often, oh my gosh, what you do is so amazing, and you're doing this incredible work, and you're so inspirational. But I will tell you, it was not ever celebrated or understood, and it was very lonely along the way. And it's not very monetarily like rewarding. It's really that non-traditional path is very hard because we are not really rewarded for taking that pathway. You have to find your pathway.
Yeah.
But then it's celebrated later.
I think
And
that's
I think
so
that's
good.
ironic.
Yeah,
I think it's
that's so
ironic
good
that
for a
it's
lot of
celebrated
people to
later.
hear. Yeah.
But I wish that
Yeah.
all of us had, we could break the cycle of the perpetuation of what is success, what is achievement based, what is enough. Because I think it's a deterrent to so many people's individual sense of
Yes.
self.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is just resonating with me so much. And I think so many people need to hear that, what you just said about following their intuition and following their curiosity and where it leads them. And even if it doesn't feel like you're seeing success right now, that it could or it couldn't come later, but like following that is what's important, right? Following that, your guidance, your own guidance, and like what you believe to be true is important. And like going back to what you said about being in the dark place, and then the kind of ideal, like I have been thinking about this so much lately, of this kind of ideal, like you said, that life's not perfect. I have chronic illness. It's like I've been thinking about this so much. I think it comes with white culture, honestly, with what we've been passed down to us, of this, everybody thinks that there's this ideal, right? This ideal of your career, this career path, this ideal health, like perfect health. And wellness, the wellness industry has sort of adopted this. People always telling me, oh, well, you should try this for your migraines. It must be some imbalance. Like there's gotta be something, like you've gotta be in perfect health. And it's like, well, no, like it's just in the past 2 years, I've accepted, actually, this is a chronic illness. Like it's not going away. And that's really hard to accept. It's hard to accept. And so we have this ideal passed down to us, right? From even Roman times to kings and queens to colonialism, like this whole idea that there's some perfect health, perfect marriage, right? And so I guess like how do we each kind of, and I guess as I've been studying, and you probably know this better than me, like different cultures, it's a lot of cultures do not have this kind of drive for perfection, for goals. It's more of like, especially in health, finding what your who are you individually, and coming into alignment with that, especially in health, like coming into alignment with that, and like who you are individually and within the community, And it's about like listening to your body, listening to yourself, listening to your path, right? Like a lot of cultures, it's like they have this kind of initiation of like, what's your path? What are you here for? So yeah, I guess, how would you tell people like to kind of follow that, I mean, everybody's different, but like it not looking at the whole, or not looking at the ideal, but like kind of, and that's what my work is about. I'm like, okay, how do we actually help people to listen to themselves? And so, yeah, what would you say to people who are like, well, how do I how do I even do that?
Well, I think you said something key just a minute ago, is that everybody is different. And so our uniqueness is what makes us great. I don't know, again, if it's this culture, but we have been conditioned to be like someone else, or you have to be the best reader, you have to be, and if you're not those things, then you're less than. And so we are constantly having to measure up to some standard. And if we don't meet that standard, there's something wrong with us, which is not, that just isn't a good foundation for having a sense of self and the uniqueness that we are, and putting that out in the world and having that celebrated. And I think that sometimes in other cultures, you don't have the luxury of living in your own house and coming and going as an individual. You are living in community, and your uniqueness might be beneficial to someone else that doesn't have those skill sets. And so you work in community more. You can't hide your valuables, and you're looked to for the skills that you do have, and you're supported for the skills you don't have. And in where we're at now, we don't honor ourselves enough because we've been taught to not live, we're not living up to those standards. So that's what we have to work on, is where we are not good enough. And I can think of all the things I'm not good at. No one else is seeing them, but I know, like, I'm not a voracious reader. I like TV. That's, I'm a visual processor. But oh my God, you're a TV watcher? My husband even used to say, and I know it came from his father and passed down, of like, your brains are going to fall out of your ears, because I would just like relax at night watching reality TV many years ago.
Oh my gosh, same.
And I would say to him, I'm like, well, I must have a lot of brains, because it seems like I'm okay. But leave me alone, basically, was what it was, because my way of relaxing was just watching someone else do something besides,
me too.
But I think that in women, and you had mentioned something about just our whiteness, or I can't remember how you said it, but I do think in this specific society, white women, we have so much power that we can create change, incredible change in our country. And because of how we are conditioned to not feel good about ourselves, or feel like we have to be with someone else in order to be doing, like, I don't want to step out and look stupid. I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to say the wrong thing, or, talk to someone and maybe feel like I don't have enough information. So we travel in packs, and then we might pull back, because most often we're partnered with white men, and it makes them uncomfortable if we're out. I don't think it's intentionally, but I've thought about it in, why we're not moving things forward enough in our society, and white women aren't using their power. And I've thought in my own life, the things I've done have never been, my partner he did not encourage them. He did not pour into them. He did not like them at all. It made him so uncomfortable. My ability to be uncomfortable helped propel him in he didn't even know he didn't know that he could succeed at what he was doing. It was a real grind. But then when I would go out, like, I realized what happens is, when our family, as I was raising we were raising a family, our priorities have to be to make sure our family is okay. So when there's a little bit more chaos, or something's going on, or we end up having to prioritize that. And so this is my own theory, but as women, we go out, we don't have the confidence, because it's been kind of taken away from us. If you're not meeting the standards or above standard, you shouldn't be using your voice, because you don't know enough, or bring someone else along to validate you. But then as we get older, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say 75% of white women are having families, and then they need to turn their attention there. And if there's fracture there, we have to make sure that fracture gets repaired. And so we focus in on our family, which then is benefiting usually also our white partner, and we can't go out and do good in the world. And so it's not, and then we feel bad that we're not doing good in the world. It's this really bad cyclical, like, I feel like we're not doing enough, but it's because we're trying to hit so many marks that we've been told we should, that are standard, and that if you are not having the perfect, appearance physically, your family doesn't have what they need, and now I think it's changing. There is more conversation about, with mental health. Like, mental health is just inherent in life with people. It's part of, it, people have different makeups in their
It's not going to be
mental.
perfect.
It's not
going to be perfect
And
either.
and so I guess getting back to, I got off track there, but really, if all of us could harness our own intuition and belief in ourselves and not have it be compared to anyone else, and know that we're going to make mistakes, and your mistake is really only seen by you and a few people, but what is seen more often is the brilliance of you going out and creating something that someone else hasn't. And so it's going back to when you said everyone is different. So all of our perspectives are different. And so if we're holding ourselves back because we haven't seen it done, or if it's not been done, that's because it's your idea and you've taken inspiration from somewhere else. So have the courage to just try, show up for yourself and show up for the world by putting yourself out and being okay with making mistakes. Because as you all know, I listened to your podcast and it's really wonderful. Like, the most growth comes from our challenges and our mistakes. And the things that we fear most, usually the growth comes most from those times that you can't avoid it. And
you mentioned having courage, and if I were with a partner, and I actually was in my first marriage, if I were with a partner who didn't believe in what I was doing and wasn't encouraging to me, that did make me shrink and made me go inside and just feel terrible all the time, and I couldn't create, couldn't be, the person I wanted to be. But you kind of you didn't let that stop you. So where does that courage come from? What did you need to support you when you were in a partnership where you weren't getting that encouragement from a partner? Where does that strength come from?
I don't know. I think it's not allowing my light to be dimmed. Like, it's truly listening to my intuition and not him. It was a fight every single time I would do something new, and it would be harmful to our relationship because I couldn't not do. I couldn't not ignore what I felt my heart was telling me to do, to appease him. And so I just continued on doing, and it's hard. I do think you need partnership that does pour into you. And it doesn't mean that person, he's not a bad person. He just didn't have the ability. It's from where he comes from. It's from what he saw modeled. It's what he's comfortable with. And I think we just have to really trust and listen to ourselves, even in partnership. And then, now where I'm at, it really got to where I just wouldn't compromise myself anymore to make sure he was okay. I'm a person, and I think I don't think I'm an anomaly. I think I'm more of the majority, where I want to make sure everyone's okay. I always made sure I put everyone's happiness in front of mine. And I think I had some weird strength that I could still make sure I was getting some happiness fulfilled too. But it came with the price of, I've never felt, I think how people see you from the outside is very different than you see yourself. Always. It is not, we're not looking in the same mirror. And, I think within my own life, like I would tell my husband, actually, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would get really frustrated. I said, I'm not going out in the world doing this work to get validation from other people, but I was getting it a lot. Like, I get it a lot from other people. And that's so wonderful to receive. But when you're not getting it from your primary partner, I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
made me feel like I was the worst person. He wasn't doing it intentionally. But he didn't, and I didn't know how to get it from him. It does become detrimental to your well-being. And so the courage to listen to yourself, and it doesn't mean you have to be on someone else's timeline, or that I should have left earlier. And it's not that we're leaving each other, I would say. Our partnership doesn't serve either of us anymore. Our needs aren't being met. But I think, yeah, it's just going back to trusting yourself. And I couldn't not listen to myself. And a lot of times, the hard part for me, and this is where my work is going forward, is to really make myself happy and really try to actually shine the light on me. And I really appreciate this opportunity to sit with you too, because this is not where I thrive. I do not like to talk about myself. It's probably why I'm a photographer. I observe the world. I learn from people. I shine lights on other people. All the work with the signs. I had started that just because I was so tired of hearing fear from all directions, from not just the conservative side, but the liberal side of everyone was in fear of each other. And it was just not what I believe. I believe we are so lucky to live in this world and have the opportunity to connect with people who are not like us. And we don't have to have the same, there's no way we can have the same ideas and be all thinking the same way. And that's what makes this country great. We need to hear and learn from each other. And so for me, it was about standing up for people and other people, and then making sure that they that are much more marginalized than myself are seen and celebrated. And that was the same with the flowers. Like when the market shut up, Pike Place Market, it was these people, their income is done. They don't have an opportunity to, stay home and still receive fun. My husband was going to work, and it was a really difficult time being in the ER, but we had a salary, we had we had money that would continue to come through, where when your market is done and it's a finite, the flowers were only going to be in season for, 3 months. Let's figure out how we can move some flowers. And so what I've done is usually think about other people a step ahead of myself. And so my work going forward, I think, is actually having the courage to stand taller in myself, probably get a little emotional, and celebrate ourselves. Like, women aren't, I mean, some do, I don't know, but just celebrate ourselves and see that we are enough where we're at, and don't and continue to put yourself out in the world, but benefit from it, not always give to it at the expense of yourself. And I think we do a lot of that. We're trying to meet other standards that are, I don't know, the standards thing is really silly.
That ideal whatever. That's not the truth. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. And is there anything else that you would want to tell people? I mean, that kind of sums it up, I feel like, but is there anything else that you would want to tell people that are listening? And then also please share like where we can find you and your work.
I think that we've done a really good job at labeling who people are in the world and who we are. Like, I'm a middle-aged white woman, mom, I think all these things, but really I'm just a person, and every single person is a person that I think never really feels like they fit into the world. And it's easier for me to fit into the world as a white woman. I think been conditioned to assimilate and fit in, but then we lose ourselves in that assimilation. And we hide the parts of us that are the most special and unique. And I think that all of us trying to discover the uniqueness in other people and allow our uniqueness, the things that we don't, always share with people, or our hards, like be honest with people. If you're having a hard day, just say you're having a hard day. The learning comes from when you say your truth. Someone might be there to give you information that will help you. Or if you need help, a friend said to me, the biggest gift you can give to someone is asking for help. Because if someone has the ability to help you, that's easy for them, whether it's knowledge, whether it's a smile, whether it's a connection, whether it's resources. But we have to have the courage to share our hards and the things that we think are our lumps and our bumps, because those are probably our best features. And then it allows other people to feel comfortable sharing theirs. And that's where true connection happens. And that's so going to then to my company, really Tara Shakti, it means that it literally translates in Sherpa to star power. And for me, I really, it really does. And the Tara in Tibetan Buddhism is this, I didn't know until I learned from my Sherpa friends that she's a very powerful deity in Tibetan Buddhism, the mother of all Buddhas, and action and compassion and
cares for other people and animals and the environment.
When I read it, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm reading the best horoscope of my life. But it's actually
amazing.
and my very conservative parents have no idea where they got my name from. But it's like one of those things. I do think things are meant to be. And so when I say to people, like with these suits, like people are a bit confused by them. They're meant for all weather, in the city, in the mountains. When women put on these suits, they like smile differently. They think anyone can wear them except for me, because, it's a one piece and I have to look a certain way. I have to lose 10 pounds. It's like, no, you're perfect how you are. And I swear it's the weirdest thing. You step into them and you watch women just light up and be like, oh, and they're fully clothed and they're happy. And I think their star power gets seen. And then when we're shining our brightest, it connects to other people and it shines back, and it becomes this universe of when we're lit up,
that's right,
the world then connects with us. And it's really important to be in that space, but know that when you don't have it and you're stuck and you're not feeling lit at all, that it will come, but you have to give yourself grace, but have the courage to get up and go out, tell one friend or even tell a stranger, or sit in space, because you never know what will come to you. And that's where the magic of life, I think, happens, is just connecting with the world, and your journey and your pathway that's very, very unique to yourself will open up.
Wow. So inspiring. Thank you so much for being with us, Tara.
And thanks. And I will say, you can find us. TaraShakti.com is the website. And on Instagram is Tara Shakti Ski. And we're in Capitol Hill. We started a pop-up in November through March. And just come in and say hi and share. Really, everything is about sharing. And even if you've never been in the outdoors, one of our things is getting women to the mountains and connecting with each other. You don't have to ski. We can snowshoe. We can do a lot of different things, but just trying something new. I think women, we are really powerful, incredible people. And if we connect around not trying to be the same, but sharing our differences and celebrating them and learning from each other, a lot can happen. Just what you're doing for me. Like the two of you come from different backgrounds, and you're bringing your greatness together to create an opportunity for other people to share their stories. And if we can do more and more of that, magic and change can happen. So thank you for having me.
100%.
I want to go with you to a cabin in the woods for a week.
I know. I hate the snow. But I want to put on one of those suits and just hang out.
It's so fun. All the women that are in the pictures, they're all real women. We don't use models, and it's just like, it's just fun.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I feel so inspired just by you sharing.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you, Tara.
And we'll put all of Tara's information in the show notes if you want to find her and her company. So thank you all for being here. And if you'd like to like and subscribe to this show, that would be super helpful. And we'll talk to y'all next time. Thank you so much.
Yay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
Flow into Authenticity is hosted by Esther Loopstra, Leslie Blumenstein, and me, Allison Henrich. Our original theme music is by James Whetzel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Flow into Authenticity from your favorite podcast app.